On Tech News Today, Google Plus goes all Pinterest on us. Plus, Google is bringing AI to Google Calendar. We've even got some updates on the next Apple TV. Stick around. Tech News Today is next.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Tuesday, May 5th, 2015. This episode is brought to you by Naturebox. Naturebox ships tasty and guilt-free snacks right to your door. With over 100 flavors to choose from, like pistachio power clusters and Big Island pineapple, you'll never get bored of snacking again. Try Naturebox at naturebox.com/twit. That's naturebox.com/twit. And by Gazelle, the fast and simple way to sell your used gadgets. Find out what your iPhone, iPad, and other Apple products are worth at Gazelle.com. Tech News Today is a show where we talk about the tech news with the journalists who report it. Welcome to the show. My name is Mike Elgan, and today I'm very pleased to say that our co-anchor is CNET Executive Editor Ian Sherr. Welcome to you, Ian.
Hi, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Now, you told me something that baffled me. You said it's a very quiet morning there in the offices of CNET. I find that very hard to believe.
Well, it happens from time to time. I mean, we're getting into the summer months. This is also the dangerous time. If you'll remember that a number of CEOs get fired on Fridays during the summer, so it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
Yeah. It's going to be a bloodbath this year, I'm sure, as in previous years, and we're certainly looking forward to that. Well, let's jump into our top story. Google today launched a major new update to Google+. The new feature is called Collections and enables you to follow people based on your interests. Martin Beck is a social media reporter for Marketing Land and joins us now. Welcome to you, Martin.
Oh, hey. Thank you, and good morning, or thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. Now, we were saying before the show started, I've been trying to get you on the show for like a year, unsuccessfully in every previous effort, but finally you're here at long last. I'm so glad you're here. Now, can you go into more detail about Collections? What the heck is this thing and how does it work?
Well, sure. It is, I mean, a lot of people have said it's sort of a knockoff of Pinterest. And in some senses, I think that's a good way to look at it. Essentially, it gives people on Google Plus the ability to follow, let's back up a little bit. It gives publishers or people that produce content on Google Plus the ability to create categories, topic categories for their posts. So instead of having, just sending your content out to all your followers, or to the public, or to private people, or to private circles, you can now create a collection that your content goes out to, and this gives people the ability to follow those collections and not follow all your posts. So it's basically it's sort of like when Google Plus first came out, there was this notion of circles that I think a lot of publishers and a lot of people thought was going to work this way, where you could create sort of categories of content and give people the opportunity to, follow certain categories or certain topics. But Circles wasn't that. Circles was, a sort of a confusing organizational tactic where you created your own list within the network. But this is sort of outward focused. And why it's similar, why people are saying it's similar to Pinterest, is that it's quite it's analogous to Pinterest boards, where people can create collections of things that they like, and people within Pinterest can also follow those boards.
So how is it different from what Pinterest is doing then?
Well, the difference, I think, and I was doing a little research on this because I thought I figured that question would probably come up. But I was reading on Google Plus a user named Jacob Dix, Dix, put together a very long, detailed Google Plus post about collections. And if you're really interested, I recommend you look him up and check it out. But one of the main differences is from the sort of the user perspective. It allows a user to follow or not follow certain boards, so or certain collections. So instead, in the old days, like yesterday, if you wanted to follow someone on Google or follow content from someone on Google Plus, it was an all or nothing thing. You were able to follow all of a person's posts or none of a person's posts. Now you have the ability to go in and follow a person's board. I'm getting my nomenclature mixed up. Follow a person's collection on Google Plus and get all the content that is put into that collection.
So I'm curious about something. I mean, I've been a beta tester of this for a while, but I haven't used it. I kind of looked at it and kind of went, I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
But do you use Pinterest?
No. Oh, I mean, I have an account, but I don't really use it.
Let me say before you ask your question, Mike, and it also gives you the opportunity to not follow a person's collection and follow everything else, which seems kind of nice. So if you have somebody, so say you want to follow BuzzFeed, but you really hate cat GIFs, and they have a cat GIF collection.
Oh, come on, nobody hates cat GIFs.
Well, yeah, you're right. So.
But I hear you.
Assuming you were a bizarre person who just couldn't stand or wanted only dog gifs and couldn't stand cat gifs, you can exclude following as well as, I mean, you can choose to not follow a collection, but get all the rest of the producer's collection, which is different than Pinterest.
So what you're saying is this is great news for my followers who follow me because they want to hear my posts about tech, and then when I go on and on about food, or if they're Android users and I go on and on about Apple, they get annoyed, and it's like they've told me, why don't you go somewhere else to post pictures of your sandwich? And so now they are in luck if I start using this, which I think I will. I mean, it sounds pretty great. Now, is this for brands as well, or is this just for individual users?
No, it's for brands. I mean, you can do it on pages as well. And I think that, I mean, I briefly touched on it in my story. My story wasn't too long. I didn't have time to really go into deep detail on it. But I used to be a social media editor at the Los Angeles Times. And when Google Plus first came out in 2011, we thought, oh, hey, this is a great way. We're going to be able to create all these topics, circles, we thought. I mean, we quickly figured out that it wasn't going to work that way. But, big publishers have all these streams, sections of newspapers, essentially, the assumption was this would be a good way to figure out how to make these verticals that people could, if I like sports or if I like, fashion, I can, follow that topic from that publisher. And now this gives you the opportunity to do that. If as long as you're willing, a publisher or a brand is willing to take the time to make, to support this. I mean,
so Martin, I'm curious, why the quiet rollout for all of this? Like, usually Google, when they have a big announcement, it's this big to-do. They've also got Google I/O coming up, so that would be a great time for this. But it seems like they're doing kind of an understated rollout for this, which is unusual for them. Does that mean that they're not that excited about it, or that they have low expectations, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. But I mean, I can speculate, and I'm sure lots of people will.
Go for it.
I mean, it just seems to me that everything with Google Plus nowadays has become muted. It's kind of been a year-long, slide. I mean, I know, Mike, you've written about it. We've written about it. Everybody's written about it. They don't seem to be. It doesn't seem to be a priority, sort of in the large, big G Google sense. there's still development going on, but it's not splashy and it's not regular. I mean, you're right, Ian, they didn't even write a blog post about this. They just, one of the Googlers updated his Google Plus profile about it.
That's pretty much how they announce stuff. They always assign the announcement of Google Plus stuff to individuals. And it's always a different person. I've never seen the same engineer do it twice.
Right.
But I have a theory about this myself, which is that Vic Indotra, who's the former chief and the main visionary behind Google Plus, was a kind of a cross between Steve Jobs and Don Draper. He was a real showman, and he loved those big splashy announcements, and he would make sure he collect, when he announced Auto Awesome and all that kind of stuff, he would just put it all together on the big stage, and he's gone. And now the people, now the people running Google Plus are kind of like the quiet, brainy type, and probably don't like to be on stage or whatever. That's just a theory of mine. No way
if only Google had marketing experts who could help them with all.
Right, or some way to put things on the internet. It'd be great if they could only do that. Martin Beck is at marketingland.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Martin Beck. Thank you at long last for joining us on Tech News Today, Martin.
Hey, thanks for having me. It was a blast.
All right, glad you were here. Let us know what you think about Google Plus collections by sending email to tnt@twit.tv. We want to hear your thoughts on all this. More news in a sec, but first let's talk about your health and eating well. Naturebox is one of our sponsors today, and we're huge fans of Naturebox here. If you go into our break room here at Twit, there's lots and lots of Naturebox bags in there, but they don't last because we love them. We eat them constantly. And if you don't believe us that this is great stuff, I'm going to let you prove it to yourself. Naturebox will give you a trial of their favorite snacks, and you just pay $2 for shipping. The snacks themselves are free to try. Now, you're going to snack. We all snack. And the problem is that people, first thing, number one, never go to the grocery store when you're hungry, because then you'll buy a bunch of junk food, and then it'll be in your house. And then when you're hungry at home, you'll eat junk food. You don't want to eat junk food. You want to eat real food that tastes great. In the old days, I'm old enough to remember when health food tasted horrible. Nowadays, there are innovative companies like Naturebox that make super delicious. It's the best tasting snack food you'll ever try, but it's real food and it's real healthy too. 0 artificial flavors, 0 artificial colors, 0 artificial sweeteners, 0 grams of trans fat, and no high fructose corn syrup. Best of all, they are just so good. They have the spicy ones, the sweet ones. They have the sort of cheesy kind. It's like whatever your favorite types of flavors are, Naturebox will have something that you will love. For example, jalapeno white cheddar popcorn. They've got all kinds of really cool popcorn, and that's one of them. Carrot strawberry fruit chews or sea salt pops. These are so good, folks, and they have so many varieties. You might feel a little bit freaked out and intimidated by the variety of snacks that they have, but don't worry. The way this works is that they'll send you a box, and you can try them. You indicate on the website which ones you like the best. They'll keep sending you those, but then they'll give you more to try. So you're always trying new flavor combinations, and you're really going to love it. You got to try their new trial. Right now, if you go to naturebox.com/twit, you can get a trial free. Just pay shipping. Go to naturebox.com/twit to start your trial today, and we thank Naturebox for their support of Tech News Today. Well, Google has acquired a startup called Timefull, which makes a time management app. It's what you might call a smart app, a very smart app. Harry McCracken is the technology editor for Fast Company, and he's here to tell us all about Timefull. Welcome to you, Harry.
Hey there, it's great to be back.
Now, I see you're joining us from the ISS. Now, how is Timefull different from your garden variety time management app?
Well, it attempts to use artificial intelligence to do a lot more of the heavy lifting of managing your schedule. You can go in and enter an appointment just as you would in any other calendar app. But you can also go in and talk about a long-term project you have, and it will start to block out time over weeks or months. Or you can say that you'd like to find time to go running 3 times a week, and it will want to pick those days for you and make sure that you're doing it at a time when you can actually get out and run instead of at your work day. And Google's idea is that rather than have this be built into a self-contained app that not all that many people might adopt, it makes sense for it to be in Google Calendar and Inbox and maybe Google Docs and all the other apps which people really do use.
So I'm curious, like I feel like calendar apps are like photo sharing apps. There are so many of them, I can barely keep track of this. So why even go after this stuff? It seems like there's just so much of them.
Yeah, I mean, it went from being a kind of a boring category without a lot of activity to being a really busy category. Microsoft, a couple of months ago, bought Sunrise, which is not all that much like Timefull in terms of the specifics, but very much like it in terms of trying to reinvent calendaring. And I think the fact that two of the more interesting products in this category have been bought by large companies is kind of an indication that it is really hard for a new upstart to convince people to use their product. And the more interesting opportunity long-term might be for big companies such as Google and Microsoft, who already have millions of people using them for scheduling, to acquire some of this interesting technology and roll it out to larger groups of people.
Now, I'm a big fan of behavioral economist Dan Ariely. What's his involvement in all this?
He's one of the founders. Timefull was started by three folks, and he's one of the people who got going on this. And he has a really good reputation for this stuff, as well as Jacob Bank, who was the CEO of Timefull and will be a product manager at Google and involved in this. So they have a lot of credibility just in terms of an academic background in terms of time management.
So I'm curious, are there any other calendar apps that are worth taking a look at this point, or are most of the really big technology companies taken and everyone else is just trying to kind of do a smart little spin on everything?
There's still some interesting ones left. Another one is called X.AI. It's still in private beta, so you have to sign up to get into it. But it's an artificial intelligence assistant who works via email, because that's the way a lot of appointments still get done. And you can tell this artificial assistant to ping the people you want to meet with via email, and she will coordinate their schedules and yours and find time. And if you're not aware that she's a bot, you might not even know it. It's so well done.
Harry, have you been using this app, Timefull, for real? And if so, what do you personally think about it?
A little bit. I mean, my challenge is because I write about this stuff, I jump around. So I have not dedicated my life to Timefull, but I've used it enough to think that they're onto something really interesting. And a lot of the time when a big company like Google buys a small startup, it's kind of depressing because the people who started that kind of disappear into the beast. And Timefull, the app, will stick around, but it's probably not going to be updated in any significant way. But having talked to Google and to Jacob, the CEO, it does sound like Google is pretty sincere about wanting functionality, which is recognizable as being based on Timefull, to show up in its apps. So I'm guardedly optimistic that this is a good idea.
I'm hoping that Timefull, I just downloaded it this morning, I'm hoping Timefull can help me find time to avoid running, actually. So we'll see if it helps me there. Harry McCracken is at fastcompany.com and technologizer.com, and you can follow him on Twitter at Harry McCracken. Thanks for joining us, Harry.
Thanks so much, guys.
Swiss luxury watchmaker IWC Schaffhausen has come up with an answer to the smartwatch revolution, a connected wristband module called the IWC Connect. Details are a little sketchy, but apparently the Connect will handle activity tracking and also offers some control of Internet of Things devices. Ian, Sherr, I don't know what they're planning here, but it just looks like a single button that is connected to a wristband. And if it's going to connect Internet of Things devices, my guess is that it will do that through Bluetooth. So you walk up to your door and it unlocks the door, that sort of thing. Or right. It just has a single button that you can program with an app or something like that. But it doesn't look like, this is definitely not the Apple Watch.
No, but it is worth noting that obviously the watchmakers are getting a little worried about the Apple Watch, whether or not Apple ultimately succeeds or not. It's very clear that the amount of attention they're getting has really upset quite a few people. And it's worth noting that if you go back to 2007, people were very dismissive of the iPhone in the beginning. And, now the leaders of the smartphone market are completely different. You went from Nokia and BlackBerry and all these companies being at the top to being Apple and Samsung. So, they have a reason to be worried. There's definitely historical precedent, and they have to do something, right? I mean, even their shareholders are going to say, why didn't you do something to compete with Apple? So this is their something. We'll see whether it's interesting or not. But from not revealing too much, maybe they're not that convinced it's a great idea yet.
Personally, I think that at the end of the day, they're going to find that that they should have been the opposite of worried about smartwatches, simply because the practice of actually wearing a watch was dying. Young people don't wear watches, and that was really the big threat. The smartphone is the thing that was killing or threatening to kill their industry, with older people wearing watches, but of course that isn't going to last. Now that smartwatches are probably going to form the habit among young people of wearing a watch, then they'll say, well, I'll have a retro watch, I'll have a mechanical watch. It's really cool, it's beautiful. Plus, it has some band that does some kind of smart thing. I think that's really the way to go. I really, again, I think the smartwatch revolution is actually going to save the sort of mechanical or traditional watch industry. But that's just my guess. We'll find out in 5 or 10 years when we see if younger people actually start wearing smartwatches. Well, TechCrunch reports that Facebook is now using Nokia's Here maps for the mobile web version of Facebook, and is also testing Here for Instagram and Messenger. Facebook is one of many companies rumored to be interested in acquiring Here from Nokia. And Ian Sherr, my understanding is that the value of Here is probably around $2 billion, which is a lot of money for, just one product / feature that most of us don't really even use. Do you think that Facebook is going to buy Here from Nokia?
Well, they certainly have the money to, so that it's their prerogative. The thing is that you've seen over time, Facebook has been trying to cut back on the technologies that relies from other companies. For example, Microsoft is one of the companies that they used to work with for search and whatnot, and they stopped kind of connecting with them to use for their search functions. Bing no longer shows up in the search bar. And so it makes sense that they're kind of trying to cut off and start using their own technologies, making it a little better. And, if they bought Here, I wouldn't be surprised, that's for sure.
Yeah. Definitely. Me neither. Well, we told you yesterday about the huge number of Periscope users who live streamed the recent boxing match between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. We also mentioned that Twitter CEO Dick Costolo said Twitter was the winner of the fight, which many interpreted as meaning that the fact that everybody was Periscoping it meant that he thought that was really great. That probably wasn't the case. Yesterday, however, Twitter announced in a statement that they tried to disable streams that were broadcasting the fight. They received or claimed to have received 66 takedown requests and took action on 30 of them. And again, this is according to an official Twitter statement. Ian Sherr, this is so now we know what their apparent policy is. They wait for takedown requests, which can't possibly be the solution for live streaming apps. These things pop up and then go away, and sometimes in a few minutes.
Well, and if you think about it, YouTube went through this back 10 years ago as well, right? One of the things I remember YouTube beginning as was a way to watch South Park episodes. So, but over time, they built a technology that allows them to automatically start gathering this information, finding out what's a violation of copyright, allowing copyright owners to actually take action automatically. So odds are that Twitter is going to probably build a similar technology, and all of this will be a moot point. But in the meantime, it's really hard to actually monitor this stuff. I don't know how many Periscope streams there are a day. I don't think they've said yet. But if you think about it, how many billions of people post on Facebook every day, and how many billions of posts show up on Twitter? There are not enough human eyeballs to watch every one of those things in real time. And so in some ways, they have to wait until people complain, until they've built an automatic technology. It just doesn't make sense otherwise.
Yeah, and I doubt that they would be motivated to build that technology, because, what's in it for them? It's just another...
Not getting into a lawsuit like YouTube, that's what's in it.
Exactly, until there's a loss, until they're yes. sort of coerced from, externally. But we'll keep an eye on that, and I think that will actually probably happen. This is going to end up in court one way or the other. Well, the New York Times says Apple's working on a new Apple TV remote with a touchpad-like interface. The remote will also have 2 physical buttons, according to the Times sources. The remote is expected to be announced sometime in June, expected by some. The company is also rumored to be working on an internet-based television service. This makes a lot of sense, but Ian Sherr, where is the solution, the grand solution that Steve Jobs alluded to years ago for, when he claimed that they have solved the TV user interface problem? I doubt it's a touchpad remote.
Well, we don't know, right? There were rumors for a while that it was actually integrating Siri, because if you remember when Isaacson was writing his book and working with Steve Jobs, Siri had not been made public yet. We didn't know what Siri was. And in fact, Siri was announced a day before Steve Jobs died. So it's worth noting that maybe we already have that interface. And frankly, I've got Siri on my watch now. I've got Siri everywhere I go. So it's not that hard to imagine. You just bark your commands at your TV like you can with an Xbox, and it works. So that could be the answer. But I don't know. I mean, the thing is that we're now 3 years ahead of, or was it 4 years, right? Since Steve Jobs died. And so, the odds are Apple has decided, well, that idea didn't work, and they went on for something else. It's really interesting, though. I mean, a lot of the stuff that Apple has tried and gotten rid of, and the things where they've gone up and down on things, there's a whole history to be told about all the things they tried and gave up on.
Yeah, that's for sure. Well, in other product update news, Google and Twitter recently agreed to cooperate on getting tweets into Google's search results again. Now it's finally happening almost. Google is actually testing the results, and only a tiny percentage of users can see them. The new feature could go live to the public any day now. Ian, do you remember real-time search results? I thought that was awesome when they had that, and then of course they pulled the plug on it, and now they're back.
No, it was really neat. And the thing is that if you look at Facebook, they're already doing this. Like if you search for any news event, or even if you click on one of the trending things on the right side of the screen, they have live updates from people that are public available that you can see in the stream, and you can comment on them. And so obviously this kind of social interaction is valuable. The question is, how do you make it worthwhile to the companies? How do you make it worthwhile to us? And that'll be really interesting to see. But clearly people love to watch this stuff.
Yeah, they do. And ironically, Google Plus had live updating search results. You'd search Google Plus, and then your search result, if it changed, would just right in front of your eyes. And then they pulled the plug on that, and now you have to refresh manually. Something that I never get tired of complaining about because I love that. I used to put it over on the side and just watch it go by, and then I did it with the real-time updates with the Twitter, and then they got rid of that. So I've been highly disgruntled over all this, and I'm glad to see live. I love a self-updating stream because, yes, I am so lazy that I don't even want to refresh.
But you have to think about it. I mean, it costs a lot of bandwidth and computer technology to have live updating stuff. I mean, even I've watched, for example, the creation of CMSs, and one of the things they constantly talk about is how often you're sending stuff back to the database, and how often you're pulling from the database, and how much bandwidth you're taking up going back and forth. And I imagine that even though Google is this big, huge, powerful company, sometimes even they look at what they're doing, they say, oh my God, by enabling this feature, we're going to triple the amount of usage on our servers. Maybe we need to cut it back a little bit. That would be my guess.
They do that sometimes, but they also do the opposite sometimes. Sometimes they say, if we make this new feature that everybody wants so expensive and difficult to use, only we can do it at scale, and nobody else could even try to do that. And I think that was sort of my feeling when they started doing Hangouts and Hangouts on Air, where they were live streaming, basically high quality video and, straight to YouTube and Google Plus, and you could share it and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, man, how that's expensive, and it's free and on a service that has no advertising. So yeah, so sometimes they do the one and sometimes they do the other, depending on how prioritized that project is within the company, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Yeah. Well, T-Mobile launched a new promotion to steal Verizon customers, and it's pretty brutal. It's called the Never Settle promotion, and here's the deal. Verizon customers can borrow a new phone from T-Mobile on the T-Mobile network for 2 weeks. After that, they can either give the phone back or they can switch to T-Mobile. And if they do switch, T-Mobile will pay all outstanding payments or contract termination costs up to a total of $650. Verizon can't possibly be happy about this.
No, but, the thing is that it's kind of, on some levels, it's the Coke versus Pepsi thing. Like, a lot of people already have their allegiances and their loyalties, and they're locked into contracts or whatever. And so, getting us to switch is going to be really hard. My mother grew up in Atlanta. It's very clear where I sit on that one. But the thing is that with T-Mobile and AT&T and Verizon, the hard part is that there are sometimes movements of some people, usually people at the low end who want to have kind of a cheaper plan and can't afford to go better. And so this is where they might be able to siphon off. But I often look at this stuff, and I may be wrong, but I often look at this stuff like undecided voters. There's a very small percentage in the entire country who actually sits in that group, and you're fighting for every one of them. But once you got them, it's kind of over.
Yeah, that's a good point. And pro tip, if you want to try the other side of the fence, if you're an iPhone user and want to try an Android phone or vice versa, take them up on this offer and try the other kind of phone. And, you get 2 weeks to try it, then give it back if you don't like it. Who knows? Maybe you'll love T-Mobile and you'll switch after all. But it's a really interesting promotion, and man, they are aggressive in going after Verizon.
They absolutely are.
Yeah. Well, a year ago, Foursquare, the company, wanted to transform Foursquare, the app, into something like Yelp. So they launched Swarm to be the Foursquare that Foursquare no longer was. But it lacks some of the original gamification features of Foursquare, but now they're adding those features to Swarm. Swarm now has Foursquare-like badge-like stickers and also Mayorships, which, you know, is a lot of triviality, but I really loved being the mayor of my gym long ago on Foursquare. So this is going to be fun. I think I'm going to try to be mayor of the brick house here, but we'll see if Leo doesn't out-mayor me. Leanne, are you into this kind of sort of game playing around stuff on the location apps?
Sometimes I am. I find myself enjoying it sometimes, and then after a while, once I realize that I can't win, I give up. And so, you know, the thing is that the mayorship thing, my wife and I had a thing for a while where we were jokingly trying to fight each other for the mayorship. And the thing is that after a while, it just kind of gets a little boring. And so it's cute, but the original reason for the mayorships, if you remember, was a lot of companies and small businesses were using it as a way to kind of treat their best loyal customers. And we'll see whether that comes back or not, but it seems like you know, if we're thinking about the larger business aspect of this, it seems a lot of that stuff has kind of gone by the wayside.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm not entirely sure, like, it's great. It'll encourage people to use it more. I'm sure there are a lot of people who really care about the mayorships, even though I don't anymore. And so that might get people to use it. But I use Swarm primarily just to keep track of all the restaurants I go to. That is the only reason that I use Swarm. And it's great for that. Like, I'm able to go through my history. I'm like, where was I last Tuesday when I ate dinner with who's it what? And suddenly I'm able to find it. And so that's a feature that I like, that I wish they would spend more time on. And, you know, the stickers and the mayorship thing, that's cool. Sure, some people like it, but it's not entirely the reason I use it anymore.
It comes from an era when everybody was concerned about Groupon, the dominance of Groupon.
Absolutely.
And you know, I sometimes use it also. A nice feature of Swarm is that it tells you who's nearby without revealing location. So instead of saying, you know, so-and-so is at this address, which is a little creepy and nobody's comfortable with it, they basically say, well, this person is within a mile of where you are right now. And if you're out of town and somebody that you know is within a mile of you, that's kind of cool. You can say, hey, you know, let's get together or whatever. So that's a great feature as well. Yeah, Swarm is really nice. It's like a much better and warmer and fuzzier Foursquare.
Yeah.
All right, well, Dropbox has a nice update that will soon enable you to create Microsoft Office documents directly inside Dropbox. This is part of course, the deal that we reported on some time ago between Microsoft and Dropbox. Pretty cool stuff, but I assume, Ian Sherr, and I'm not certain about this, but I'm pretty sure you actually have a license to use Office documents, right?
It's not entirely clear. I haven't played with it myself, but there is, Google can actually create compatible documents.
I do it every day, and then when my editors send it back to me in a Word doc, I can't read it.
Right. Well, maybe that's a problem. But generally speaking, the way it's supposed to work is that you're supposed to not have to think about it, right? And same thing with, by the way, Apple Pages, right? Apple can create with its Pages app, which is the competitor to Microsoft Office, a Word doc equivalent. So this may be that. I really haven't played with it much.
Yeah, and nobody has, because it's not real yet. Well, in product obituary news, last week we found out that you could play MS-DOS games inside Twitter tweets. The Twitter embedding feature enabled DOS games from the Internet Archive's collection of 2,600 games to be shared and then played directly inside the tweet on twitter.com. Sadly, it turns out embedding interactive media like games is against Twitter's terms of service. So now Twitter replaces embedded games with a boring link. This was cool while it lasted about a week. And a lot of fun, but they should just change their policy instead. What's wrong with interactive games?
Well, there's all sorts of stuff like this that doesn't make sense, right? I still can't view an Instagram photo inside of Twitter. And I know that both companies say they have reasons for it, but come on, it's the 21st century. This stuff is all supposed to work together. And it does seem a little trivial in the end of the day. Yeah,
Twitter does a lot of this kind of thing. They, sort of disable the access to the social graph for Meerkat because they have their own Periscope alternative. And so they do this kind of like, they use their control over Twitter.com to sort of block anybody who might get in the way of them with their business, making money. And so I guess on the one hand, that's reasonable. And on the other hand, we kind of treat Twitter is a kind of public square, all-purpose thing, and it's kind of irksome when they don't agree with that view. Well, we got more news in just a sec, but first let's talk about Gazelle. Expensive gadgets are the best kind, unfortunately, and if you want to raise money for your next gadget, you got to sell the old gadget to raise that money sometimes. And Gazelle, of course, is the greatest way to do that. A lot of people think that the most environmentally friendly way to buy and sell devices is to buy something and then hang on to it for a long, long, long time. And that is, that's, I guess, better than, way better than buying something new every year and then throwing away the old one, or even sending the old one away for recycling or something like that. But the very best thing to do is to upgrade quickly and frequently so that and through Gazelle, because your older device is going to be refurbished and put back into the hands of somebody who will love it as much as you did. And that will prevent them, theoretically, from buying a new smartphone. And that is the only environmentally kind of smartphone there is, the one that is never manufactured. And so if you're going to buy a new device, make sure that you not only sell your old device to Gazelle, but also consider buying your device from Gazelle. You can buy a pre-owned device from Gazelle if it's certified like new. That's one of their 2 categories of devices to buy. It'll be just like a brand new device. And if you don't love it 100% and for any reason, you can return it for a full money-back guarantee policy type of situation. And it's going to be great, though, because they put it through a 30-point inspection to make sure that it's totally functional. If you want to save a ton of money, then their other category of phones to buy is called certified good. They may have some gentle signs of wear, but they are going to work perfectly. And again, you're going to get a great, great price. So if you've got a budget for that device, get a better phone by buying through Gazelle. Don't buy a brand new phone, because you'll get a better one at Gazelle. We'll find out what your iPhone's worth. Take a minute and go to Gazelle. That's GAZELLE.com to find out. And we thank Gazelle for their support of Tech News Today. A European court ruled today that Microsoft's Skype sounds too much like Sky, which is the name of UK telecom. As a result, Microsoft won't be able to register for a trademark for Skype, not even for the name, not even for the logo. Microsoft plans to appeal, but Ian Sherr, I think they're going to lose this one on appeal.
Well, the European courts are very different from American courts, and they often will side in certain ways that even us Americans haven't gone that far. For example, if you remember during the Microsoft antitrust thing, one of the things that happened in Europe that did not happen in the United States was the requirement that whenever you started your first Windows experience, right, you'd open up your new fresh laptop, you'd turned on Windows, it would say, by the way, which browser do you want to use? And that was something that did not happen in the US. So it's very likely that the Europeans, however they come down on this, will be a little tougher than we would be. But it's going to be really interesting to watch. Yeah,
and I just can't wait to find out what they call it, because it's not going to be Skype.
Well, they can call it Skype. They just can't get the trademark, right? So they can still keep calling it Skype. The problem is I can't call, I can also call my thing Skype. Right. Huh. And so that's going to be the problem, is that they can't control the trademark. It's kind of like the Redskins, right? The Redskins lost, the football team lost the control of their trademark through the U.S. Patent Office. And suddenly, South Park did a whole episode about how you can call anything the Redskins now. And so that's part of the problem for them.
Our second South Park reference, a new reference.
Hey, I like to make them.
Well, in news you can lose, Grand Theft Auto 5 has a cool feature that lets you use an on-screen smartphone in the game world, just like you use a real phone in the real world. You can send texts to and call others in the game. You can manage contacts and even take pictures of the virtual landscape. But now iPhone users playing the PC version of GTA 5 have created an Xcode tweak that enables the virtual phone to be used via a real phone. Let's take a look at this video. So he's holding a that doesn't look like an iPhone. That's an Android phone, and he's basically using the phone that's on screen, but through an app on the real phone.
I think you're wrong. That looks like an iPhone. I can see the home button there.
Jason says that's a Galaxy S4. It's an iPhone 4, is it really?
Yeah.
Looks like it has a square button at the bottom. Oh, okay.
No. I think you're wrong.
Okay. Well, it's a phone anyway. So there he is. He's essentially doing the same functionality as the virtual phone, but again with a real phone. That is pretty cool. That is a pretty cool hack there, and congratulations to them for having the free time to do that. That is beautiful. Well, our TNT fan of the day is Pete S., who posted this video on Google+. Let's take a look. And here comes the video.
Hey, this is Pete from San Antonio. This is how I used to like to watch Tech News Today until Sony killed it.
So what we're looking at here, I believe, is Loot EOD, which is basically it's a virtual environment where you can buy a TV set in the thing and then watch actual TV within the virtual environment, and you can do it socially. So those characters milling about are other people using using Loot EOD, and we're in the virtual TV world. Very strange.
It's very inception of it.
What's that?
It's very inception of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And now it's in our show, so it's like, it's giving me a headache. Well, show us how you watch or listen to TNT. Just record a video or take a picture of yourself or your setup and post it on Google+, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever, and use the hashtag HowIWatchTNT so we can find it. Ian Sherr, thank you so much for calling today. What are you working on, and where can people read what you do?
Well, what I'm working on is really cool stuff that you should read about coming up soon. We actually have a new version of our magazine coming out in, I think, in a month and a half. So CNET Magazine, if you didn't know, we started it in November. It's really awesome.
That's made out of trees, right?
Yes, trees. We knock them down. We put ink on them. We ship them to you. They're great. Wow. So that's that. And then I'm on Twitter at Ian Sherr, IANSHERR. And you can pretty much find me on any social network that way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
My pleasure.
All right. You can subscribe to Tech News Today at twit.tv/TNT. You can also watch us live every weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC at live.twit.tv or on the app or browser plugin of your choice, which you can find at twit.tv/apps. If you're ever in Petaluma, come on in and watch us as part of our studio audience. Send email to tickets@twit.tv in advance. If you'd like to help us grow our audience, here's how you can do it. Just post a link to twit.tv/TNT on the social media site of your choice. Tag 3 friends and recommend that they subscribe. You can also follow us on Twitter at Tech News Today TV. You can follow me personally on Periscope. Just tap the people icon and search for my name. Also, don't miss Tech News Tonight at 4 p.m. Pacific every single weeknight. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tech News Today. This show is produced by Jason Cleanthes and edited by Anthony Nielsen. My name is Mike Elgan. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow.